Freeways resembling racetracks.
Lane 2, 112.
City streets turned speedways.
Perfect example, and that's all day. I mean, that's what happens here all day.
If you think driving in Dallas is scary, the data suggests you're right.
Another deadly commute continues in Dallas.
We discovered over 5 years Dallas had the worst traffic fatality rate among America's 10 largest cities.
The numbers are too high, and now my mom is one of those numbers.
So we launched a year-long effort to find out why our roads are so risky.
Oh my God, that wasn't there a moment ago.
Look at this.
And why speeds seem so high.
Look at this SUV. Oh my gosh.
And we discovered it's not just bad driving.
We need to stop building roads like this.
We pinpointed roads where people die again and again in the same places.
It's an emergency that needs to be taken care of immediately.
Places where people dodge traffic on city streets with freeway speeds.
63 is Toyota.
And no safe place to cross nearby.
Some critics of the agency say that TxDOT has a history of designing roads that actually encourage higher speeds.
Well, I would certainly push back on that.
133.
We documented the dangers and then traveled across the continent searching for solutions to slow speeds and save lives.
This is safer?
Yes, because if you see all those vehicles, including the turning vehicle, they're stopped for you, right?
Everybody stopped.
Everybody stopped.
For us.
Right?
And suddenly the conversation we started sparked change in Dallas.
That is going to hopefully save lives of Dallasites.
New efforts to address insane speeds.
We commit our institutions to help solve this problem.
And a new vision to reshape streets where too many are driven to death.
I'm senior investigative reporter Scott Friedman. This 14-month-long investigation began with some startling numbers. Take a look. Dallas's traffic fatality rate is 27% higher than Houston, 51% higher than Los Angeles. We analyzed 5 years of federal data and found Dallas averaged about 15 traffic deaths for every 100,000 people. That put the city just above Phoenix with the highest traffic fatality rate among U.S. cities with more than 1 million people. And we also discovered there's one thing causing deadly crashes in Dallas more than anything else.
Good morning, Dallas. Another deadly morning rush hour commute continues in Dallas.
A multi-vehicle accident. Reports are 2 people were killed at the scene.
It's how Dallas starts the day.
We are following a fatal crash that happened.
We hear it so often, maybe we've come to accept it as normal.
So here's what we can tell you about the 3 deadly crashes.
Almost like traffic deaths are just the cost of doing business on our fast-moving freeways and city streets.
This is a pedestrian who was hit and killed.
The startling images pour over us.
An 18-wheeler comes crashing over the highway.
Maybe distracting us from seeing how it all adds up.
The driver has died.
In the city of Dallas alone, traffic crashes have killed more than 1,000 people since 2019, and more than 5,000 have been severely injured. To see what's causing crashes most, NBC5 Investigates obtained Texas Department of Transportation data for fatal and serious injury crashes in North Texas. We mapped the location of every death, every major injury since 2019. We pinpointed places where people are hurt and killed again and again. The data also showed us that in Dallas, speed is what's killing us more than anything else. In the city, it's the #1 contributing factor to deadly crashes, often combined with other top contributing factors like driving under the influence and drivers failing to stay in a single lane.
The numbers are too high. And now my mom is one of those numbers.
These aren't just numbers, these are families.
And that is the toughest pill to swallow.
Marcela Soto's life changed when her mom's car was obliterated in a high-speed crash in the Woodall Rogers Tunnel. Reina Salazar was a nurse heading home from an evening shift.
The most hardworking person you could ever meet.
Police say a car driven by a teenager who had been drinking slammed into Salazar at a high rate of speed, ending a beloved mother and grandmother's life.
That's been the hardest part, coming to terms with the fact that she's no longer here.
Marcella says she's now hyper aware of high speeds on Dallas streets.
Do you get angry when you see that?
Yes, absolutely. Every time. Every single time. Every single time. Especially if my kids are in the car.
90.
NBC5 Investigates conducted speed studies, clocking drivers on Dallas roads that have seen numerous speed-related deaths since 2019.
Dark SUV, 91.
We did it with help from our NBC5 colleague Don Peritz, a retired Sheriff's Department traffic sergeant.
100.
In no time, we saw extreme speeds, clocking some drivers at 100 miles an hour or more, like on the CF Hahn Freeway south of downtown.
Black sedan, lane 2, 112.
Almost 50 miles an hour above the 65 speed limit in afternoon traffic. Here at CF Hahn and Prairie Creek, TxDOT records show 11 people have died in less than 5 years, nearly all in speed-related crashes. We clocked more than 100 cars at that location. 9 out of every 10 were traveling above the 65 mile per hour speed limit.
80, lane 1, silver sedan.
4 out of every 10 were exceeding the limit by 10 miles an hour or more.
Lane 2, 77.
Look at this SUV. Oh my gosh.
But those speeds probably don't surprise you, because you drive these streets.
Look at how fast that guy just passed us.
As we crisscrossed town for this report, we captured images of things many of you complain about on Dallas roads.
Speed is a high factor. Driving in it every day, it's crazy.
You see the startling moves.
Look at that. All the way across every lane of traffic.
The cars racing past you, making you feel like you need to speed or you could get run off the road.
I see a lot of road rage. Tailgating, people following way too close.
And it's not just the highways.
Perfect example, and that's all day. I mean, that's what happens here all day.
On city streets, we clock cars traveling closer to freeway speeds.
63, right here. Whoa. It's Toyota. 57.
Speed matters because research has shown every 10 mile an hour increase in speed increases the risk of death or serious injury in a collision.
It's very frustrating, but it happens all the time in this city.
Max Kayam survived a crash that looks like something you would see on a highway, only it happened on a residential street. A driver in a car with a high-performance engine suddenly punched the accelerator, according to witnesses, lost control of the car, and careened into Max's car at what he describes as freeway speed. Both cars landing in the front yard of a home in the M Streets neighborhood.
That is one thing I do remember is the high RPMs as he was hitting me. I can still hear that sound.
The crash broke his sternum, shattered his wrist, leaving permanent damage.
I don't recommend it to anybody. It's a horrible thing to go through.
These crashes leave Max and other victims wondering if there's any way to calm the speeds on Dallas roads.
What is it that we're lacking as a city, as a state?
We set out to answer that question, talking to people who study road safety.
I would say this is dangerous by design.
People who suggest many of our roads feel like racetracks because they were built that way.
They're driving that fast because they feel like the road is inviting them to do that.
We traveled to another country to see how bold street design changes are making a difference for drivers and pedestrians.
Everybody stops.
Everybody stops
for us.
Right? So it's so safe for you. There is no conflict between pedestrian and vehicle.
A city that's embracing technology to calm traffic and save lives.
When people start to see that the data is showing that our numbers are coming down, it just reinforces that this is the right behavior to take.
And back in Dallas, we questioned city officials about what's happened since the city council began talking about a plan to eliminate traffic deaths over 7 years. Why have the numbers gone in the wrong direction?
This has been the case nationwide.
What's being done to address stretches of road where people are dying again and again? Answers matter in a city losing people at a faster rate than many others its size.
Red alert due to a fatal accident.
It would mean so much for me to see those numbers come down.
Does have the freeway shut down. Dallas
knowing that the streets are safer.
When we come back, the Dallas City Council signed a pledge years ago to work to eliminate traffic deaths. So why have the numbers gotten worse? And what's happened to the city's plans to address the most dangerous streets?
Now staff is asking for another 24 months.
Was this a real commitment to change, or was this more of a press release?
I think at the time, everyone was on board with it.
The Dallas City Council made a bold promise in 2019 to work to eliminate traffic deaths over 7 years, a plan known as Vision Zero. Vision Zero is a traffic safety strategy that assumes people will make mistakes, crashes will happen. But roads can be redesigned to slow speeds and reduce chances that crashes will cause serious injuries and deaths. But as our investigation found, almost 4 years after the City Council began embracing that Vision Zero approach, the city had not even started to reconfigure its most dangerous streets.
In a city of big, busy streets, Loop 12 Buckner Boulevard stands out as one of the most deadly. NBC5 Investigates analyzed TxDOT crash records. In less than 5 years, at least 150 people have been seriously injured and 24 killed on the Buckner portion of Loop 12 alone. 12 of the dead are pedestrians, like Luis Diosdado Munoz, a popular neighborhood paletero and ice cream vendor in the Pleasant Grove neighborhood.
Un paletero en la zona de Pleasant Grove fue atropellado y falleció.
A pickup truck hit Munoz as he pushed his ice cream cart, leaving his signature cowboy hat in the road.
Muy rápido.
Muy rápido. De hecho, estamos viendo cómo están pasando los carros.
Munoz's daughter, Elizabeth, says the speeds are very fast. In fact, she says, we can see how the cars are passing by. We did see.
You see that all day long.
Bobby Peterson has owned a car shop on Buckner for decades.
I've seen them doing close to 100 miles an hour sometimes. Yeah, just racing, winding out, and you're like, oh my God.
Lane 1, 56.
NBC5's Don Peritz, a retired sheriff's deputy, helped us clock more than 100 cars on Buckner near Bruton Road. 9 out of every 10 were traveling above the 40-mile-per-hour limit.
57.
We clocked some at speeds you might expect on freeways.
63, right here. Whoa. This Toyota.
Speed is one half of what appears to be a lethal combination on Buckner, mixed with a constant stream of pedestrians crossing the road without using crosswalks. One after another, we watched people cross mid-block. It's not hard to understand why when you see how far you would have to go to use a crosswalk.
For example, on Buckner between Bruton and Hume Drive, we measured, and the crosswalks are more than a half a mile apart. So someone getting off the bus here would have to walk about a quarter of a mile up, cross the street, and then come a quarter of a mile down just to get to the other side.
Están muy lejos los semáforos para cruzar.
The traffic lights are too far away to cross, Elizabeth told us. She believes that's why her dad was not in a crosswalk when he died. I would like to see that no one else lose their life, just like my dad, she says.
We need to stop building roads like this.
We walked Buckner with David Zipper, an urban planner and researcher who studies road safety strategies around the world.
This is a road that is designed unsafely, and it's people, I think on foot in particular, who are going to pay a disproportionate share of the price for that.
Zipper says Buckner and other streets that look like it were built for speed more than safety. He says the wide, straight lanes give drivers a false sense it's safe to drive freeway speeds, even though Buckner is lined with store entrances and pedestrians on a major bus route.
The idea that you would create bus stops on a road like this and not facilitate the safe passage of pedestrians to and from that station, I mean, to be honest, it strikes me as, I don't know whether to say crazy or inhumane or both.
We're going to talk about Vision Zero. What is Vision Zero?
In 2019, the Dallas City Council said it would use a Vision Zero strategy to reshape dangerous streets.
I'm really happy to see our city go towards making this commitment.
The council has pledged to work to eliminate traffic deaths and cut serious injuries in half in the next 7 years. But a draft of a 2023 Vision Zero progress report we obtained showed few of the city's action items completed, many marked as not started. Other progress notes were blank. We questioned the city about this. Weeks later, they released a new version showing more blanks filled in. But a memo attached says out of 40 action items this year, just 9 have been completed, 24 are in progress, 7 have not been started, with the end of the year just 8 weeks away. The report says the city has completed safety evaluations on 5 dangerous corridors, including Buckner, and it says lower-cost, quick-build improvements are being considered.
How would you characterize the current situation on Dallas roads?
I would say there's a lot of room for improvement.
Catherine Rush is the city's chief transportation planner. Her department has completed its own study ranking streets with the most deaths and injuries, but it uses older 2015 to 19 data. The worst road was a portion of Great Trinity Forest Way in southern Dallas. One stretch of Buckner was second worst. Looking at all of Buckner, the city's numbers showed another 138 people killed or severely injured from 2015 to 19.
How does it get that bad?
I think it's a lot of, to some extent, it's a little bit of a lack of a dedicated effort of somebody dedicated to using data to identify these high injury locations.
Rush explained even though the city council okayed Vision Zero in 2019, it took the city almost 3 years to create an action plan.
We didn't actually get funding from City Council until October of 2022, and so really we're just now, from a implementation perspective, approaching the 1 year line.
24 months ago, colleagues, 24 months ago, we voted to make Vision Zero start.
Last year, council members complained about slow progress.
Now staff is asking for another 24 months.
Was this a real commitment to change, or was this more of a press release? I think at the time, everyone was on board with it.
Councilmember Chad West believes the council is still on board, but says it must include Vision Zero in bond funding plans so it can pay for more significant improvements that reshape streets.
We shout about it in the news media. We talk about it on our social media for our council districts. But then when it comes down to the funding, it's not even recommended, much less voted on. So it's an issue.
We also discovered the National Vision Zero Network reviewed Dallas's plan and found it did not meet the group's national criteria because it lacks concrete steps to reduce high speeds.
We're not questioning any city's commitment to safety, but to really be recognized as a Vision Zero community, we want to see very explicit timelines, strategies, and ownership.
The group believes cities must lower speed limits and narrow traffic lanes or reduce the number of lanes in pedestrian areas to encourage drivers to slow down.
I think we've really seen in the last 10 years or so such a direct link between the width of the travel lanes, the way the street is designed, and how fast people go.
Dallas's action plan sets a goal of 10 major Vision Zero projects by 2027, but the plan does not specify what those projects would involve. Other goals in the plan are very small, like installing improved pedestrian crossings at 3 locations a year.
Forgive me if I sound underwhelmed, but how many intersections are there in the city? You're talking 3 a year?
Yes. So again, we just wanted to start by getting the wheels turning.
Rush says the city hopes to accelerate plans after more money is approved. But addressing dangers on Great Trinity Forest and Buckner may take longer because they're part of Loop 12, which is also a state highway. So changes would need TxDOT approval too.
We're inviting interactions that are unsafe.
David Zipper says many cities struggle to implement Vision Zero as leaders discover it's easier to say you want safer roads than to fix them.
A lot of city leaders and public officials find that they're more interested in making announcements about Vision Zero than in actually making the investments that are necessary to actually save lives.
We reached out to TxDOT, and a spokesman told us the agency would welcome discussion with the city about lower speed limits and crosswalks on Loop 12 Buckner Boulevard. More on what's happened with that conversation in a minute. But first, we saw immediate reaction to our reporting from Dallas City Council members, including new calls to re-examine progress on Vision Zero and to dedicate more money to the program.
We need to be more intentional about completing this plan and making sure that it's something that works across the city.
At a city council meeting, the Transportation Department provided an updated copy of its Vision Zero progress report. It still showed out of 40 action items for 2023, just 9 completed, 24 in progress, 7 had not been started.
If the goal is to complete this by the end of the year, I'm wondering why we are where we are.
The committee requested a briefing at a full council meeting to question staff about the time passed.
Too much time, way too much time, and I think it's a matter of having the right champions. I think each plan needs its champions, and right now we have the right people around the horseshoe who are really going to push this forward.
While we're being a little bit relaxed, people are still dying. People are still having these major wrecks. Again, I just keep seeing those red and yellow dots all over that place.
You know, life is very precious to anyone. You know, you don't want to lose a loved one because we hesitate because we think it was an urgent situation. It is urgent.
Those discussions would eventually lead to passage of a city bond package that includes millions in additional money for Vision Zero improvements across the city. Right now, about 4 people die in traffic crashes every week just in the city of Dallas, and 23 are seriously injured. Now imagine a city about the same size where most weeks no one dies in a crash. We went there to see how it's possible and found a city more aggressively embracing Vision Zero. We're on a journey to a land of safer streets, where roads are being reshaped in strange-looking ways. A city that opens your mind to the thought that maybe someday deadly car crashes could be a thing of the past. Welcome to Edmonton in Alberta, Canada. They sometimes call this Canadian province the Texas of the North. It's a region known for producing oil. They like their pickup trucks here too. And in recent years, they've driven down traffic deaths and injuries with an aggressive road safety strategy. The Dallas metro area is bigger than Edmonton, but the two cities themselves are similar size, about 1.1 to 1.3 million people. Last year, Edmonton had 14 traffic deaths. Dallas had 228. So maybe Dallas could learn from this Canadian town with crosswalks that look like something from the Land of Oz. This is very jarring to me to see this, just to be in the middle of the intersection, but this is safer?
Yes, because if you see all those vehicles, including the turning vehicle, they're stopped for you, right?
Everybody stopped.
Everybody stopped.
For us.
Right? So it's so safe for you. There is no conflict between pedestrian and vehicle.
They call this a scramble crosswalk. Pedestrians can cross diagonally because traffic lights are programmed to briefly halt cars in all directions and prohibit right-hand turns on red. This prevents cars from turning into people in crosswalks. Edmonton installs the scrambles in spots where crashes have hurt and killed pedestrians, something that has not happened at this location since the scramble arrived.
We haven't had any pedestrian-involved collisions
None.
for this location, none.
In 2 years?
In 2 years.
It's one small part of the Vision Zero plan Edmonton adopted in 2015. In the next 6 years, traffic deaths declined by 50%, severe injuries by 30%. When you ask how they've done it, the answer often includes one word.
The data. And we look at the data.
We need to have that data.
They use it to identify where people are injured and killed most. Then they attack those spots with everything from high-tech traffic enforcement to radical street redesigns.
You actually took a lane of traffic away here.
Yeah, basically on this road, for example, there was a parking lane on one side.
In high pedestrian neighborhoods, they're narrowing roads to slow traffic speeds.
What does narrowing the road do from a safety standpoint?
Yeah, it's a combination of, it makes sight lines better for folks in the area, people driving. As you turn into a neighborhood, as a road is tighter, you instinctively will slow down.
If they can't build a narrower street right away, they use temporary tools like these curb extensions, easily deployed in a day.
Just the narrowing of the road by this curb extension just makes people a little bit more subconscious or conscious about, okay, I better slow down because there's something going on here.
It's helped in Paul Kyler's neighborhood, on a street locals called the Speedway.
We've had a number of casualties on this road because of speed.
Kyler and his neighbors worked with Edmonton's Street Lab program that connects families with city traffic engineers.
We'll hear their concerns, and then we'll work with them to implement traffic calming measures.
In Paul's neighborhood, the curb extensions started as a test.
And then once we get enough feedback seeing how they work, if they work, they put in a more permanent solution, which we're actually getting here.
All over Edmonton, you see permanent concrete curb extensions, shortening the distance for pedestrians to cross and encouraging slower speeds near intersections. The city is also raising crosswalks to make them more visible and partnering with school kids to paint them bright colors.
So as drivers are approaching the crosswalk, they can see it from a distance away, and it's been well received by the community.
But reshaping roads is only part of the plan.
I notice this is bright yellow. Why is that?
We want people to slow down immediately, right?
These automated speed enforcement trucks are slowing drivers in spots where crashes happen most. Peace officers monitor as radar automatically clocks speeds. Cameras snap photos of speeders, and tickets are sent in the mail.
It's a really good tool, and it's proven effective year after year for our Vision Zero strategy.
The city says crashes have come down more than 30% on streets where the trucks are used. Under local laws, they can only be used in limited spots with a history of crashes, and those locations must be published in advance.
And that's why our vehicles are bright yellow, right? We're not hiding behind the trees. We're out in the open. People can see us because we want them to slow down.
Still, as you can imagine, not everyone here is thrilled with efforts to slow down traffic.
No, of course not.
City Council member Andrew Knack says Edmonton leaders faced opposition, especially when they voted to lower speed limits citywide.
There was this fear that, the traffic would be at a standstill.
City engineers responded using data showing most drivers would barely notice a 1 or 2 minute increase in commute times, while the slower speeds would reduce deaths. Today, Knack says he hardly hears any criticism.
Almost everyone has moved on and realized how much better and how much safer that's made our local communities.
Nobody likes change, but at the end of the day, when you see the results and when you can feel the actual extra safety, it's worth it.
What Edmontonians told us is all that data has not only helped fix problems, it's been a key to getting more people to buy in. There's power, they say, in numbers showing things like crazy-looking crosswalks actually work.
When you tell the other side of the story, that how it is saving life, protecting people, then people understand why we are doing what we are doing.
A message to Dallas, Texas, from the Texas of the North.
What we've seen here in the city is something that can probably be a model for a city like Dallas, for sure.
Now compare what we saw in Edmonton to what we found on Dallas's Loop 12, which new data shows has become the city's most deadly street. Take a look. Each of the dots on this map represents a fatal or serious injury crash on Loop 12. According to TxDOT data, at least 479 serious injuries and 105 fatalities in less than 5 years. The loop is known as Northwest Highway to the north, Buckner Boulevard to the east, Walton Walker to the west, and in southern Dallas, it's Great Trinity Forest and Ledbetter. Perhaps nothing highlights the dangers on the loop more than one small stretch we pinpointed where 5 pedestrians died in less than 1 year. Loop 12 is where Arthur Fleming lost his sister.
I'm going to do what I can to make sure that the killing stops over here in this area.
Betty Sue Fleming was 77. She was headed to the store on an evening in November, crossing the street here in the 2800 block of Ledbetter when a car crashed into her.
This area needs to be modified to be more pedestrian friendly. Right now it's not pedestrian friendly.
NBC5 Investigates searched TxDOT crash records and discovered Betty Sue was the 5th pedestrian to die in just 11 months of 2023 on this stretch of Loop 12 near Bonneview Road. And TxDOT records show over the last 10 years, 11 pedestrians have died within less than a mile of where Betty Sue was killed. A police report says Betty Sue caused the crash because she was not in a crosswalk. When that happens, police typically say the pedestrian failed to yield the right-of-way to the car. But some road safety advocates say that finding often ignores other important questions about whether the street was designed to give pedestrians safe, convenient places to cross.
You have the police saying, oh, they were jaywalking, they broke the rules, where really the responsibility should largely fall on the road designers, in my view.
Urban planner David Zipper walked parts of Loop 12 with us last fall and was stunned to see lots of pedestrian traffic and no mid-block crosswalks near bus stops, apartment buildings, and stores, leaving pedestrians to walk long distances sometimes to find a crosswalk. Without safe, easy places to cross, Zipper says traffic engineers should expect people will take their chances and cross in the middle of the street.
It's the road designers who really failed in the beginning. And I would say it's still a failure that it hasn't been fixed yet, because this road looks like it's been here for decades.
Near where Betty Sue Fleming died, there's a bus stop where our cameras saw people constantly walking across the middle of the street. From above, we could see how people dodge traffic here. Watch how this pedestrian walks slowly, then leaps forward to get out of the path of a moving car. If you look up this location on Google Street View, you will see images of pedestrians crossing here mid-block dating back years. Traffic planners sometimes call this the desire line, the place where it's clear humans instinctively want to cross.
Wait to cross.
Some cities like Austin are installing more mid-block crosswalks with pedestrian-activated stoplights in places where pedestrians have been killed. Arthur Fleming wonders why it hasn't happened on Loop 12 in southern Dallas, where so many have died.
I see neglect. I see community neglect. I see a not caring bureaucracy.
There are two bureaucracies in charge of Loop 12. It's a City of Dallas street and a state highway. Records we obtained show the city's transportation department and the Texas Department of Transportation have been aware of pedestrian dangers on the loop for years. 2 years ago, the city's Vision Zero road safety plan identified the section of Ledbetter where Betty Sue Fleming died as one of Dallas's top 5 locations for pedestrian deaths and serious injuries. And in 2019, a TxDOT study raised concerns about pedestrian safety on another nearby section of Loop 12 further east, where at least 5 more pedestrians have died. The report says engineers observed generally aggressive vehicle pedestrian behaviors and a lot of jaywalking, along with some vehicular disregard for pedestrians. They found most pedestrians were crossing Loop 12 to access the DART bus stops. And the report mentions possible solutions involved installation of crosswalks, adding pedestrian bridges, or implementing pedestrian signals such as pedestrian hybrid beacons. Those flashing lights we showed you Austin is installing in more locations. So why haven't pedestrian beacons and mid-block crosswalks been installed here to protect people? One possible answer can be found deep in that 2019 TxDOT report. The report says TxDOT installs pedestrian hybrid beacons only on roadways with speed limits of 40 miles per hour or lower. On Loop 12, the state set the speed limit at 40 and 50. So TxDOT would have to conduct traffic studies and recommend a lower speed limit before beacons and mid-block crossings could be installed.
They have a policy that says that you can't install a pedestrian signal if the speeds are 40 miles an hour or higher.
Last fall, Dallas's chief transportation planner told us the city would like to reduce speeds on the loop and install mid-block crossings. They set the speed limit at 40, which prevents you from putting in additional safe places for people to cross?
Yes. I mean, we could put in a bridge, but that's very expensive. A lot of times people don't use them. So it has resulted in taking away some of the tools in the toolbox.
For months, NBC5 Investigates is asked to interview TxDOT's Dallas District Engineer, Cecil Clemens, who oversees the region's state roads. But through a spokesman, our requests have been declined. In a statement, the spokesman told us TxDOT conducted a speed study on one section of Loop 12 this summer, and it is still being discussed with the city of Dallas to determine if any revisions to the current speed limits are needed. TxDOT told us the department has spent $15 million on projects along Loop 12 since 2015, including upgrading traffic signals and installing sidewalks. The spokesman says TxDOT will continue to work with the city of Dallas and DART to improve pedestrian safety. Arthur Fleming wants more urgency.
And so we're going to try to wake them up and see if we can't make them care, or at least respond to what we're talking about.
Fleming, who once headed Dallas's NAACP chapter, says he plans to push city officials to advocate for more rapid changes. In a statement, the city's transportation director told us we are currently evaluating opportunities for improvements in coordination with our partnering agencies, including TxDOT and DART. The city is also considering bond funding to improve street lighting on 6 sections of Loop 12. But Fleming believes it will take more to make the loop safer for southern Dallas.
And that's what I'm going to do, try to organize some folks to go down and see if we can't get something done about it, citywide, but particularly over here.
After we aired that report, a prominent state senator called for action to address the problems our reporting uncovered.
And obviously, something must be done. And we can't just study it. We've got to get something done about it.
State Senator Royce West is vice chair of the Senate's Transportation Committee. He pledged to pull together state and local leaders to find solutions. And within weeks, he held a town hall meeting in a neighborhood along the loop.
A lot of African American, a lot of poor people live right here within this corridor. Okay, so I think it's been neglected.
Neighbors seeking answers from the region's top transportation officials, asking what can be done to stop the constant stream of traffic deaths on Loop 12.
I expect you guys to solve this problem. You're the experts. You guys make the final decision, then you make the big dollars.
Some asked for help to address that location we discovered near Loop 12 and Bonneview Road, where 5 pedestrians were killed in 11 months in less than a mile, including Arthur Fleming's sister.
My question is, who will be held accountable for these lives?
The area's top regional transportation official, Michael Morris, made a remarkable promise that the North Central Texas Council of Governments, the City of Dallas, and TxDOT would team up to make short and long-term changes.
We personally pledge our commitment to this corridor. We commit our institutions to help solve this problem. We plead with the community to help us get into the detail and the science.
Morris heads transportation for the Council of Governments. He was there with Gus Concarly and Season Clemens, the city and TxDOT officials who had declined to speak with us earlier. They were now stepping forward to say they would develop a comprehensive Loop 12 plan. New traffic signals and crosswalks, possibly even mid-block signals to slow traffic and give pedestrians more safe places to cross.
We have a lot of bus stops along the corridor, and not all of them are close to a crosswalk.
Neighbors told us changes couldn't come fast enough.
I mean, look at these cars, how fast they're going.
It's like a raceway.
Right, and it's a child right there.
Oh my gosh.
You see what I'm saying?
That's frightening.
Taylor Toynes leads the 4 Oak Cliff Community Center, right on the Ledbetter Boulevard section of Loop 12.
I'm troubled by the speed that people are going down Ledbetter. They drive it like it's a freeway.
Toynes was troubled by the crash numbers. In just the first 9 months of 2024, there had been 15 fatal crashes on Loop 12, according to our analysis of TxDOT data, making it the deadliest roadway in the city again.
It's an emergency that needs to be taken care of immediately.
Is it being dealt with like it's an emergency?
I think it is an emergency, and I think it's being dealt that way.
In an interview, Michael Morris shared more about how his agency will help lead major efforts to reshape Loop 12 into a slower and safer street.
But I think you're going to see dozens of strategies being implemented over the next year, and maybe dozens of strategies being implemented in addition to that as we see what works and what doesn't work.
Dozens. You're saying real action is happening to address this right away.
Yeah, it's affecting all of us.
Morris says his agency is working with the city and state on plans to slow speeds physically by redesigning portions of the road, which was built decades ago as a highway loop on the edges of the city. It's now a busy urban roadway that still transitions at one point from a freeway into a city street, adding, Morris says, to the dangers.
So if the roadway looks like a junior freeway and you artificially put a speed up there, you're kidding yourself thinking the driver is going to go that particular speed.
Morris told us transportation planners are also working to add more safer pedestrian crossings to reduce the constant flow of people we've seen walking in the road, and using the narrow median for shelter as they try to get across.
I've never seen pedestrians walk the median, which is the most dangerous.
They walk up and down it.
They walk the median.
Morris says engineers will also address the area where Loop 12 cuts through Glendale Park, separating the pool from a picnic area and a bus stop on the other side of the street.
So if you're getting off the bus here and trying to get to the pool on the other side of the street, you have to go about a half a mile either direction to reach the closest crosswalk and then a half a mile back. The faster but more dangerous route is right across the street through all of this traffic.
From above, you can see the distance between the crosswalks. The city has allocated bond funding for a pedestrian bridge that would link the two sides of the park, but Morris says other possible solutions are still on the table and they want to hear from the community. Meanwhile, we've learned DART is addressing bus stops on Loop 12 located far from crosswalks, leaving transit riders in tough spots. DART plans to relocate 28 stops and remove 16 more, including this one on Loop 12, Buckner Boulevard and Cordell. That stop left transit riders to walk a half a mile or more to get safely to the other side of the street, using the nearest crosswalks. Instead, many cut right across, risking a more dangerous crossing.
They gotta walk fast.
And back on Ledbetter near 4 Oak Cliff, officials are now working to address another concern, a lack of curbs to separate sidewalks from the street.
Some places like here, the grass has just grown right over it.
Yeah.
There really isn't hardly any curb at all.
And to see a car coming right there, like, that wasn't much of a step down.
Change will take time, but people with the power to bring change now promise swift action.
I'm not asking the community to be patient with us. The community's expectation should be this is an emergency and you should treat it as an emergency. That's what their expectation should be.
What came next was a flurry of change. The Dallas City Council voted to lower the speed limit on major stretches of Loop 12 with TxDOT's approval. New speed limit signs went up right away, showing the reduction from 45 or 50 down to 40 miles per hour on some sections of the road. TxDOT installed more visible signs and even painted speed limit numbers on Loop 12 itself.
That is going to hopefully save lives of Dallasites.
Dallas City Council members explained it's just a first step toward addressing the deaths. For Arthur Fleming, it was a moment of hope after the loss of his sister.
Well, I'm just glad that her death will be a part of getting something done so we can stop the killing.
At another town hall meeting, TxDOT announced it would install 15 new traffic signals, creating mid-block crossings for pedestrians. And they plan to have the work complete in 18 months, lightning fast by city and state transportation project standards. DART began moving bus stops, putting them closer to crosswalks. TxDOT and the city pledged to install new lighting on the corridor, and the Council of Governments said it's considering using federal money to hire new police officers dedicated to speed enforcement on the city's most dangerous roads. Transportation officials also said they're working to identify other area roads that share the same characteristics as Loop 12. High speeds, a transition from a freeway to a city street, and a large number of pedestrians dependent on public transportation. The Loop isn't the only Dallas street where our reporting sparked changes. Up next, the freeway of insane speeds.
142!
The changes made after we questioned how the state set a speed limit on a busy expressway that's seen so many crashes involving high speeds. Plus the case of the missing crosswalk.
Oh my God, she's gonna run.
Changes to another major Dallas street where we found students sprinting through traffic on a street where some crosswalks seem to have vanished. Speed is the #1 cause of deadly wrecks in Dallas. So are Dallas drivers just lead-footed, or is there more to the story? Some road safety advocates believe the state's road design and speed limit rules actually contribute to higher speeds and more deaths. So we went searching for answers, starting with a couple of Dallas freeways where speeds blew our minds.
You guys ready to roll?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, let's take a drive.
He's just not getting on the highway.
Tower Chopper 5.
Texas Sky Ranger's going to follow us as we give you a better view of what it looks like to follow the speed limit on Dallas freeways.
Whoa, he left us sitting still.
Suddenly, the world is passing us by. On I-35 heading south toward downtown with the cruise control set at the 60-mile-per-hour speed limit, it looks like we're barely moving as we're passed on all sides.
You start to feel like you're like this obstacle that everybody wants to get around.
It seems driving the speed limit can feel uncomfortable out here, almost dangerous.
You will feel weird and you will feel like you're doing something wrong because you're on a racetrack that's wide open.
Jay Crossley says it's no surprise, given how TxDOT has built roads and set speed limits for decades.
How can we find ways to reduce the really negative, really dangerous behaviors?
Crossley heads Vision Zero Texas, a group supporting cities working to eliminate traffic deaths.
The way we have designed streets and roads in Texas is entrapment. And we've said, you know, we blame the users for using the system in the way it was designed.
Crossley says the state has long designed roads to accommodate speeds much higher than the posted speed limit. This is what's called the design speed. He says TxDOT designs have often prioritized wider traffic lanes on massive freeway corridors and 6-lane state highways running through urban pedestrian neighborhoods. Designed for moving traffic fast, he says, more than keeping speeds at the safest levels in congested areas.
At some point, you have to make a choice of whether it's more important to save lives or to facilitate fast car traffic.
We drove with road safety researcher David Zipper on Dallas roads with hundreds of serious traffic injuries and deaths in recent years.
These highways are so wide that they're acting as like a faucet, just shooting so many cars into the urban core.
On Central Expressway north of downtown, we analyzed TxDOT crash data and discovered at least 78 people have been seriously injured and 18 killed just in speed-related crashes in less than 5 years between Woodall Rogers and Spring Valley Road. TxDOT actually raised the speed limit on Central 8 years ago from 65 to 70 miles per hour. The agency said at the time that would help alleviate congestion.
And so we were able to go there, do some speed studies on our interstates, and determine what the speed limits actually should be.
Zipper says it's rare to see a speed limit set that high on a highway running into the heart of a major U.S. city.
As far as I can tell, raising speed limits, particularly in a dense place or an urbanized place like Dallas, just gets this state further away from the safety goals it's supposedly pursuing. So I don't really understand how TxDOT is thinking about this.
We went to TxDOT's top executive to ask what they're doing to address speeds.
Director Williams, Scott Friedman, NBC in Dallas. Good, how are you?
We approached Executive Director Mark Williams at a road safety conference in Austin after TxDOT staff told us they would not make him available to speak with us.
Some critics of the agency say that TxDOT has a history of designing roads that actually encourage higher speeds and contribute to injuries and deaths. And I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Well, I would certainly push back on that.
Williams told us his agency is using many tools to build safer highways.
Certainly appreciate advocates and people who challenge us to look at our status quo and how we go about designing roads.
But he also suggested TxDOT can increase speeds and improve safety at the same time.
Yes, we have to design our roads to address congestion, and at times that will, the goal of that is to increase speed. People are sitting in congestion, they're not moving. But we've also got to balance that out with the safety concerns and the safety factors that are there.
There is an inevitable trade-off between speed and safety.
Zipper says American road planners have long been addicted to what he calls the myth that fast roads can be safe in big cities. He points to Canadian and European cities with much lower death rates, where they've lowered speed limits and strictly enforced them using automated cameras to ticket drivers. They install traffic calming devices and build lanes that give drivers a feeling of entering narrower spaces, forcing them to naturally slow down in pedestrian areas. David Zipper believes it's no coincidence Texas highways have some of the nation's highest speed limits and the state leads the nation in traffic deaths, about 12 every day. Some safety analysts say part of the problem is a formula TxDOT has used to set speed limits, called the 85th percentile rule. TxDOT would clock speeds on a road, then set the limit at the speed of the 85th fastest out of 100 drivers.
The people who are driving, quite faster than everyone else, we take them as the norm and say that's what the speed limit should be.
So if a road has lots of speeders, some fear the 85th percentile rule actually encourages engineers to raise the speed limit.
And as a result, we end up with traffic that is moving at speeds that are, I would argue, very unsafe.
The federal government has moved away from using the 85th percentile rule as the main factor in setting speeds, and TxDOT told us it's doing that too.
It has been misused in the past when we look at that exclusively, and our teams don't do that.
So you're moving away from that.
We have to look at it. We're adding and supplementing that with a number of other issues, a number of other factors.
But meanwhile, we still drive on roads where the 85th percentile set the limit, like on Central Expressway, where TxDOT records we obtained show the agency used the 85th in these speed studies before raising the limit in 2015.
Black truck, lane 2, 80.
We ran our own speed study and clocked drivers on Central traveling 10 or even 30 miles per hour above the 70 mile per hour limit.
100.
Guy came right up on my bumper.
Which explains why trying to obey the law out here can sometimes feel pretty awkward.
You end up with freeways and big streets in our cities that are racetracks, and it feels uncomfortable to drive at a safe speed.
Chopper 5, what are you doing now?
High speeds on US 75 Central Expressway were thrust into the national spotlight in March after a crash involving an NFL star accused of driving 119 miles per hour. So we went back for a more in-depth look and clocked speeds that suggest 119 is not uncommon. What we documented in our report sparked big change.
After the sun goes down over Central Expressway,
100 even, inside lane.
speeds soar.
Whoa, 105, 106.
With our colleague Don Peritz, a retired Dallas Sheriff's traffic commander,
115.
we clocked vehicles at 3 locations along Central between about 8 and 11 p.m. on a recent Monday night. And at least a dozen times,
128, motorcycle.
we saw speeds at or above 100 miles per hour, sometimes way above.
127, 133.
That's 63 miles per hour over the 70 mile per hour speed limit. We showed our video to Dallas City Council member Paul Ridley. He represents neighborhoods along the expressway.
How concerned are you about the level of speed?
Well, I'm very concerned, and this is the first time that I've seen empirical evidence of people speeding that fast on Central Expressway.
Ridley says the concerns are magnified by the recent crash involving Kansas City Chiefs player Rashee Rice, who police say was driving 119 miles per hour before this collision. That alleged speed made headlines, but it's still almost 15 miles per hour slower than the highest speed we recorded on a random Monday night.
133, how does a police officer even catch up to that?
Good question.
Are you shocked to see speeds at that level at that time of day?
I am, at any time of day.
In fact, even in broad daylight,
112 on the motorcycle, northbound, inside lane.
we clock cars at or above 100.
I think there's a widespread perception that there is no traffic enforcement anymore, and people are getting away with it.
In April, Councilman Ridley expressed concern about a lack of speed enforcement citywide, prompting a response from Police Chief Eddie Garcia, who said his department has only 29 traffic officers to cover the entire city.
We certainly are not going to be in a position anytime soon to be able to staff every intersection in the city with regards to enforcement. Our traffic unit does the best they can, utilizing data.
Last fall, we reported Dallas police records show the number of speeding tickets written on Central dropped almost 70% from 2019 to 2021. That number rose in 2022, but was still down about 30% compared to 3 years earlier. NBC5 has requested but has not received more updated police data. Last fall, Garcia told us he was surprised when he arrived in Dallas to find city police are responsible for speed enforcement on major state highways.
I was shocked, to be very, very surprised, because yes, in California, the California Highway Patrol pretty much does enforcement on all the freeways in the state.
Councilman Ridley believes Dallas should ask for additional help.
We should call upon the state to do more traffic enforcement on highways that are owned by the state, such as Central Expressway and the interstate highways.
Ridley also questions the speed limit on Central. TxDOT raised it 8 years ago from 65 to 70, saying it would alleviate congestion. As NBC5 Investigates has reported, some road safety experts say it's rare to find a speed limit that high on a freeway running into a major U.S. city. An attorney representing a driver injured in the Rashee Rice crash recently told us he believes the higher speed limit on Central has encouraged speeding.
I'm alarmed, actually, at the speeds that cars are traveling. First of all, the speed limit there is already 70 miles an hour, which is questionable from a safety aspect, given that it is a heavily commuted thoroughway and in the middle of our city.
We reached out to the Texas Transportation Commission, which sets speed limits, to ask if the limit should be reevaluated in light of drivers traveling more than 100 miles per hour. The commissioners referred us to a TxDOT spokesman who told us there is no way to address the recklessness and total disregard for human life when someone chooses to drive over 100 miles per hour. The spokesman added TxDOT has not received a formal request to lower the existing speed limit on US 75.
TxDOT shouldn't have to wait for the city to ask them to address a dangerous condition.
Ridley says he wants the city to ask the state to re-examine the speed limit and help the city enforce it on a road where the current numbers seem more speedway
103 passing the truck. 109.
than expressway.
115.
That speed study Councilman Ridley requested as a result of our reporting led to changes. TxDOT reversed itself and determined a lower 65-mile-per-hour speed limit was justified, paving the way for the city to make a change.
Tonight, the Dallas City Council has voted to lower the speed limit on US 75 Central Expressway after an NBC5 investigation exposed extreme speeds and a stunning number of deadly speed-related crashes.
New speed signs went up immediately from downtown to Mockingbird Lane. Council members described that change as just a first step toward addressing the dangers, along with plans for increased enforcement.
So it's a work in progress. We have to do things like this, lowering speed limits, traffic calming measures, in order to carry out that goal and achieve what we're trying to do here.
A lower limit may not deter those extreme speeders willing to drive at more than 100 miles per hour, but now police can write tickets that carry more severe penalties at a lower speed threshold. As our series continued, we heard from people across the city desperate to find solutions to calm speeds in neighborhoods too. That includes Ferguson Road in East Dallas, where even though taxpayers paid for a city-hired consultant study that identified serious dangers years ago, neighbors say they're still waiting for solutions.
Oftentimes I say speeding, high speed, 50, 60.
Our Ferguson Road tour guide is Vicki Martin, who heads the Ferguson Road Initiative, a group concerned about safety on this busy 6-lane artery in East Dallas. One example of why? Watch over Vicki's shoulder right here.
Oh, see? Did you see that?
Just ran the red light right in front of us.
There's somebody on a bike. That happens all the time.
It happens so fast, maybe you didn't notice. As the car runs the red light, there's a cyclist nearby trying to cross the street. Martin says red light running and speeding are a constant threat on Ferguson, combined with a lack of safer places for pedestrians to cross. We saw that too. Many intersections with no crosswalks or faded lines where crosswalks once existed.
So the sign here says this is where we're supposed to cross the street. But when you get up to the corner, you look and there's no crosswalk. Well, there's a line there that looks like maybe there used to be a crosswalk, but there isn't anymore. And even if I could get across the street safely here, there's no sidewalk on the other side.
Some of the connecting streets don't have sidewalks either.
This is what we have to walk on to get to the apartment complex?
Absolutely.
We're in the street.
That's right. We're in the street and there's no shoulder. There's nothing safe here. You have children and families that go to our White Rock Hills Library, and there's no safe way for them to get there if they're pedestrians.
TxDOT crash data shows at least 230 crashes on Ferguson Road in 5 years, involving at least 26 serious injuries and 6 deaths. Speed was the #1 contributing factor in those crashes. In one case, a woman was killed walking her dog. Police say a drag racing car crashed into her.
A crash up here?
Even during our short tour of Ferguson, we saw a crash.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That wasn't there a moment ago.
Look at this.
An SUV hit a light pole in the narrow median, ending up stuck on top of an old concrete light base. Police say another car turned into the SUV, forcing it into the median. Martin says the old concrete light bases are a roadside hazard all along Ferguson that should be replaced with modern breakaway poles that flex, reducing the risk of injury. But even more than that, Martin wants the street redesigned to calm speeds.
My opinion, Scott, is that you've got to change the configuration of the street. You can't expect law enforcement to have these enforcement patrols at every corner. They can't be everywhere.
In a video meeting Martin's group organized in February of 2022, the city's transportation director, Gus Concarly, told neighbors the city would conduct a study to see what can be done to address high speeds and crashes on Ferguson.
The primary goal of the study is to investigate the present traffic safety and operational conditions along Ferguson Road and recommend strategies and improvements
That was almost 2 years ago, leaving Martin wondering what's happened.
I've been waiting for a report on the calming study.
NBC5 Investigates has learned the study is complete, but has not been shared publicly. We obtained a draft copy from a source. It lays out dozens of potential improvements, like installing new crosswalks and new updated traffic signals, and redesigning portions of the road to reduce excessive speeds. It even suggests reducing the existing roadway from 6-lane divided to 4-lane divided, a strategy road safety experts say can often slow traffic and improve visibility. Exactly the fix Vicki Martin is hoping for.
The way Ferguson Road was constructed initially is antiquated today. It doesn't fit the neighborhood.
We reached out to Dallas Transportation Director Gus Concarly to ask if the city will implement any of the study's recommendations. In a statement, Director Concarly told us, as noted, the Ferguson study is still in draft form. We are currently evaluating the draft. We'll make recommendations and anticipate public outreach as part of the process. Along this fast-moving street, some hope for quicker change and slower traffic.
I think there have got to be ways that traffic can be slowed physically.
Not long after our report, the city's transportation department held a public meeting with neighbors on Ferguson Road. City officials said they don't believe a road diet, removing lanes, is the best plan for Ferguson, but they're working on a comprehensive strategy to address dangers. The city and the power company that owns those concrete light bases are also in contact about possible plans to replace them. The city did immediately address another danger zone we identified on Ferguson Road. They installed a new crosswalk in a spot where our cameras captured Dallas ISD students dodging traffic, even sprinting across the 6-lane street at an intersection with no safe place to cross.
A neighbor shot this video as city crews painted a new crosswalk at the intersection of Ferguson Road and Matterhorn Drive. Road striping that will at least give students a marked path to get across a fast-moving 6-lane road. In November, we saw students crossing here in the middle of the street.
Oh my God, she's gonna run.
Even running to dodge traffic. A narrow median offering little protection for pedestrians. After our report, neighbors and Dallas school officials expressed concerns to the city's transportation department. In a statement, the city tells us we received 2 requests, including one from Dallas Independent School District requesting improvements near this intersection. The statement also says the existing crosswalk at Ferguson and Matterhorn already was scheduled for maintenance as part of our annual program for routine maintenance of signs and striping. But images of the intersection on Google Street View suggest that crosswalk has been faded and barely visible for more than 15 years. The Google images show just remnants of the crosswalk lines on the street in 2007, in 2008, 2011, 2015, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, and 22. In November of 2023, when we visited, it was hard to make out any crosswalk lines.
Meanwhile, NBC5 Investigates has learned a consultant the city hired to study the traffic dangers on Ferguson has recommended much bigger changes to protect pedestrians at this intersection.
NBC5 Investigates obtained a draft copy of the study from a source. The study says a marked crosswalk here at Ferguson and Matterhorn should be accompanied by a PHB, a pedestrian hybrid beacon, or a traffic signal. PHBs flash to warn drivers pedestrians are about to cross and then turn red, stopping traffic. The study also suggests the city consider installing a median refuge island on Ferguson, a wider place for pedestrians to take cover while crossing. The study says those improvements will accommodate for students observed crossing Ferguson mid-block. Google. That's right, the Google Street View images from 2022 show students standing in the narrow median and then walking right next to moving cars as they try to get to the other side.
We can study things forever and ever. You know, people definitely want action, and we're all a little bit impatient.
Pastor Paul Burns leads a church just down the block. He says neighbors hope the city will do more to make Ferguson pedestrian-friendly and calm high traffic speeds.
I put out on Facebook, what are the needs of the neighborhood? And everybody, traffic. That was the big thing that they were worried about here.
Burns says he's encouraged by the city's efforts to examine the dangers. And he's offering his church for neighbors in the city to come together for a more peaceful future on Ferguson.
You want safety. You want the kind of neighborhood where people feel like they can be out and about and see each other.
The city's transportation department tells us it's working on a final improvement plan for Ferguson Road and will share it with the community to get feedback before moving ahead. Millions of dollars for other Vision Zero projects are also on the way through the city bond package passed since our reporting began. And over the last year, we've heard from so many of you concerned about streets in your own neighborhoods. We've posted our crash data maps on our website so you can see the spots where injuries and deaths have happened most, right down to your street. You can also watch all the reports in our Driven to Death series there too. And we want to hear from you. Tell us where you see road dangers. You can message our investigative team at ic@nbcdfw.com. We will continue to ask questions and hold leaders accountable for safer streets. Thanks for watching.